Are we still sticking to social media, or can I point something to David? Yeah. David, now we have been talking about in the morning also how this classification, the policy side of it, then David was talking about the audit side of it. But I just want to know from you, like some of us would have had some experience on the SIM project, Security Incident Event Management. So in your point of view, are there any things we need to look at now? Is there any now, something that all of us are aware of is like when you enable auditing, there would be performance degradation. So, how Oracle has tackled it, and what are the things available in your front?
Thank you. So from the SIM perspective, basically SIM solutions will rely on their information which is produced by the target monitored systems. So it can be a network device, it can be security tools, it can be databases, it can be applications, right? So that's the nature of the SIM. So most of the SIM will also be equipped with incident management reporting, incident management workflow for incidents, right? So the fundamental difference with our solutions is that the Oracle solutions from the auditing is not trying to replace SIM, because our solutions does not really provide incident management and correlations capability. What we have done very differently is where we are not only depending on the logs which is generated by the target database, but we are able actually to capture all of this information as it is flowing in the network. Yeah, so that will minimize the impact of logging within the database systems. One of the common issue with regards to auditing in database is that when we turn on fine-grained auditing to identify all the object access as well as all the detailed transactions within the database, that will take up a lot of resources in the database systems. So most of the database administrator will be very reluctant, in fact, to enable those detailed auditing. So should your organization require those detailed auditing to be turned on, then basically we have a solutions that will address that without the need to enable the auditing within the database itself.
I think we have a lot more people from audit here, and there must be having burning issues, right?
Regarding Facebook and Skype, do they have their privacy policy?
Separate.
Regarding Facebook, Twitter, Skype and all, do they have their privacy policies published, or is it not available? That means when we are recording some call, we have to inform the customer that we are recording your conversation, but do they display that on their websites even? I am not aware.
Chandra, can you answer?
I must, in fact, I was not aware of it, but I'm sure they also must be sort of like leading towards that, because more and more corporates have started using them. But then again, you'll have to look at the free, the free license and the paid license. There'll be a difference. Anything free, probably they will not record, they will not have all these basically guarantees. But to go for the paid version, I'm sure that they will basically provide it. I mean, they will be bound to provide. I mean, we can always ask them the privacy, because then that's the reason why we pay a vendor. If they're paying Oracle something, they'll be bound to give us value. So like that.
Is it?
But anything free, I don't know. Of course, it will be a goodwill gesture from them to provide that. But otherwise, I have been a vendor myself some time back. But there is a cost element. There is the price that you need to pay, the price to pay. So anything free, I don't know. I'll have a big question mark there. Stop there.
Is it?
Okay.
that database, when it comes to auditing, in the audit database, I said, you know, big data, you have lots of data. Now we talked about classification in the morning. So if you come to like a person, since you audit people here, what would you recommend would be like the basic things as not what you should look into as if you're going to audit, say, a database?
Yeah, I think from the auditing perspective, in regards to any system, I would recommend that you follow the security policy. Right, so a security policy will dictate what type of information that you would like to capture from the specific system. Now, system A and system B may have a totally different security policy depending on the criticality of the system, depending on the data hosted in the specific systems, right? And I guess there are two objectives from the auditing. Number one is to perform forensic analysis, so that when something happened, you can always refer back to the information that you collected. And number two, obviously, is more proactive actions, right? So if there is suddenly a flood of errors coming in through your audit logs, so you want to suspect something is happening. Let me just give you a scenario. One of our customers that I talked about earlier during my presentations is that when their internet banking was hacked, in fact, the attacker is not attacking the bank network, right? The attacker is actually attacking the customer. And they are waiting for this customer to log into the internet banking, hijacking the session, and replaying that session actually to get access to the bank network. So the hacker is not really interested to steal money from this specific customer, no. But the purpose for this hacker in accessing those internet banking system is to get more intelligence, what type of system they are running, right? What is the web server running, what is the application server running, what is the database server running. And they are trying to do application scans, whether this account.jsp is available, right? Those kind of application scans that usually the hacker will do actually to identify your applications. So if you enable auditing, definitely that will produce a lot of noises, because if there is specific resource within the applications that is not available and people are trying to access to it, it will generate an application's error log. Right, so if we monitor that, then we will be able to identify that there are specific suspicious activities running in our network. So with regards to advanced persistent threat, which I talked about earlier as well, the only way for the organizations actually to address that is really like when we are going to a doctor, right? We do a checkup, and then if we see there are specific fluctuation in our heart rate, then we would want to address that. There must be some issues with our heart, right? If there is something going on in your network and you are monitoring a very sensitive applications, that you may want to perform certain investigations, right? Because something is out of norm. Probably there are other specific activities which is not approved by your organization, which is really happening in your network.
So how would you give, say, as Mr. Chandra said, and also the earlier speaker said, the whole idea is, okay, to monitor, I need to have a lot of resources involved, no, to monitor all the data that I use. Right. How do you, an organization coming with that, what do they fundamentally should monitor?
Well, I think, as I mentioned earlier, basically it has to refer back to your security policy. Right? What does your security policy state? Many of our customers obviously decided to monitor all your privileged user access. Right? If you log into database, you are using the SysDBA role, for example, which have full access in the database. So you would really want to know, what does this guy do, right? Are they doing a normal activities, or actually are they snooping around in your sensitive data? Right? Some other people are looking at specific sensitive tables that they have within database systems, right? Sensitive activities, for example, if somebody creating a new table, somebody is changing the database schema, right? So all those fundamental critical transactions within the database is something that you can actually look at.
Mr. Chandra, how can we sell this to, okay, the management, as I said? Okay, at IT we know, as security professionals we know that these areas are important. we must look into it. But how do we sell it to the management to say that, okay, now we need so much resourcing, we need so much bandwidth to do this monitoring, and because it's to prevent this. So how would that, we talk about value delivery, no? How do we sell this to the management?
I think as I said earlier, this has to start from the business strategy and the IT strategy itself. You need to go and just basically put them out as projects. They become just projects. Because there is no linkage. Right? Just like he said, okay, you can during the time you basically design your security policy, we need to have that knowledge of what basically it can do, the capabilities. So same way, we have to ensure we start from there. Because everybody has a budgeting process, you have a strategic planning process. See, IT needs to sort of get into this. The CIO is an important person, and if there is a chief security officer or someone who is looking after that area, also becomes an important person, right? Because the auditing, basically chief kitchen auditor, they become very key. I think a lot of organizations, they don't get involved in this process. It becomes only the business people. So it's time for you all to sort of time for us to rather. In our organization, yes, I have a voice. Right? As a CIO, because there are projects driven by IT, business projects, and there are IT projects driven by business. So we have both. So we need to have mix of both. I can easily forget about security projects. But then next time when the regulator comes in for an audit, or maybe we will find issues. So I think banks, I think it's happening at a higher level because you get board risk committee, board audit committee meeting, and then there is IT steering committee meeting. So these issues are taken up at a higher level, at the board level. So the board of directors are aware, and the CEOs are aware that this we need to spend resources, we need to have people in, we need to have this basically tools in order to carry on day-to-day work, not just to audit, carry on day-to-day work. So that's, I would say that's probably the best way of doing it. That includes even training. I mean, it's difficult basically to get someone sent for training, and especially when you are having a tight budget, first thing to be cut is training.
I have a question. Actually, what percentage of banks' resources or maybe financial budget will be allocated for this security kind of thing? I mean, can you mention some?
I knew you would ask this. That's why I just kept the percentage. It varies. I cannot divulge how much we are basically spending, because then that we are either weak or good, right? So there can be hackers here or potential hackers here. Of course, with due respect to you. I think it all depends on how you have to look at the benchmark. Right? I don't think any bank or financial institution going to divulge that. But there are surveys available. There is Gartner. There are so many. I think we need to basically get involved in these surveys, and then also I'm sure Oracle can basically provide this as well. Oracle and others, because they have wealth of data, right? And then make use of that. Internally, we know. In fact, if you even ask me personally, I still don't know exact percentage as such, because some of these projects, the security project, get buried in big business projects. If you ask me, if we're implementing a co-banking solution, what is the Oracle percentage? I really don't know. It can be sizable or may not be sizable. So it's like that. So it's one whole big project. So these things have to be embedded. But what you need to look at is the value that you spend, right? Identifying and then how much you can increase. So right now we are doing it. Right now, for instance, I have a kind of an idea of what we are hoping to budget next year. But this year I don't, because we also didn't look at it in that manner when we budgeted last year.
One more question. Say that you said that it's this security auditing, that budgetary whatever things has to be come from top. Say that director board is not that technically into that Then is there a particular process that you get feedback from junior system admins, engineers, and other staff as well?
In fact, I actually didn't say coming from top. It's a joint exercise. What we have to do is generally strategic plans happen. The business decides where to go, or other the board of directors, and then also the key region leaders. The others get involved, and then so that's why someone who has a voice on this IT security area has to be part of this basically strategic planning committee, at least on the IT strategy design, because that has to get into the IT strategic plan. Like for instance now, when regulator comes on the audit area, they check with IT whether the IT has been audited. They check with the CIO. Of course, they don't directly go and ask the internal auditor or the audit team. But on the other hand, if they haven't done it, they probably maybe found fault, or maybe CIOs found fault why you haven't but you are basically your processes audited. So you can't pinpoint and say it's a board of directors' responsibility. It's a joint responsibility. Then also the other thing, you need to have a bottom-up process. We have certain initiatives that we have done in our bank. We have a channel there are individuals can basically give their views, suggestions, not just pure suggestion boxes, but something much more constructive. Like for instance, when these suggestions come in, say if it is IT related, I need to respond within a particular time. Whether this is possible or whether it is not possible, or whether basically it is feasible, whether I am turning it down. If I am turning it down, the reasons. So it goes to a committee and the committee will set it. Right? So these kind of processes are happening. I know it's not easy, but we have to start somewhere. In fact, even our organization also is not 100% right. In fact, basically even myself, I don't respond within that scheduled time, because we are generally busy with our day-to-day firefighting and various other things. But somehow it happens. The organization ensures that those ideas are looked at. I hope I answered your question.
Just to add the question, I think it's not just about money. The skill levels needed to do this kind of value comes to whether you will have it whenever necessary.
It's a question that needs to be answered. I really don't know whether all the organizations can afford to have right skilled people whenever they need. And it's something evolving continuously. You do something, then it's going further. So I think that gap is going to be there. I don't know. Institutions like Isaca is trying to do that. I believe that doing something to improve it. But this gap is going to remain. So I think we should be mindful of it.
One way of addressing the gap is actually maybe using outsourced contractors, or so it can get there.
Still, I think the limited, even outsource, there isn't 100% guarantee of anything. So we need to be mindful that there will be a gap.
Yes.
Anything else?
One more thing I want to ask, we generally see the privacy and those things come from other regions. So is there a particular, anything interesting happening where you are from, Singapore? Anything towards, we see a lot of now, even in your presentation, you were talking about anonymous activism and all that. So rising from those, are there anything regulation that is pushing the industry towards, maybe if you look at banking or the, say, financial sector?
Yeah, with regards to Personal Data Protection Act, in fact, it will cover commercial sector. So it's not only in banking sector, but also across industry, right? So the implementations of this privacy law in every country is slightly different. For example, in Singapore as well as in Malaysia, it's only the commercial sector which is subjected by the law. But in Philippines, for example, including the public sector as well, right? There are also slight variations in terms of the definitions of the personal data and sensitive personal data, right? In Singapore, because Singapore is very pro-business, right? They do not define what is written in your business card as sensitive personal data, right? Which is in other country might be different case, right? However, across the countries, sensitive personal data usually involve health information, for example. In fact, it should be a very big concern if you are in the healthcare industry, because information about the health of a specific individual is considered very sensitive. All right. In Malaysia, for example, they also consider your political orientations. Whether you are current party opposition is also considered very sensitive. Religion is also very sensitive in Malaysia. In Philippines, very interesting, they consider sexual orientation of person is actually considered sensitive. All right, so every country have a very different way in defining what is this sensitive personal data. Right, the enforcement from the government is also very different. In Malaysia and Philippines, for example, they are following the audit regime. There will be a ministry being set up under the Prime Minister to perform audit to corporations. In Singapore, to save money, they don't do that, right? But it is based on complaint, right? So again, there are slight differences in terms of how the law is being enacted. But one thing which is also common is all the laws actually impose both financial fines and criminal prosecutions, right? And the criminal prosecutions are the ones that really scare people off. To really look at the law in more detail.
Yeah. Thank you. We'll now have the draw. We'll have the draw now. Please note if you can't see it, you can see written there is the link that you get all these slides that was presented today. It is http://goo.gl/oblr NG, right? So it's there. So you all can, we'll also, if you give your emails to Shanika, the secretary, we will be emailing you the link. So you can just click on that and download the slides.